voice is a preacher from the back room, calling my name and I follow just to find you. I trace the faith to a broken down television and put on the weather. Then I've trained myself to give up on the past, cause I've frozen time between hearses and caskets. Lost control when I panicked at the acid test. I wanna get better.
Bishop, running down to the wire here, making this come true for you. Hold on just a second. Okay, there we go. Welcome back. Yeah, this is the first episode of Muscatine Viewpoint. I'm your host, Chad Bishop. It's been a while since we were last on, but we are live now, in theory, hopefully, live on Muscatine's YouTube channel 9. And also, we've got a link on the Facebook page, so if you are tuning in from either of those opportunities, then you can be a part of the show. Specifically on Facebook, we're hoping that you can click on the link to YouTube and then check out our Facebook page and be on the show. If you've got a statistic or a counterpoint, type it on there. If I see it, I'll bring it on the show. If you've got a photo or something you want to add, we'll pull it up, and in future episodes, hopefully we'll have the technology to make you guys live contributors on the show through Facebook. Let's see here. We got that going on right now. Got my portal here. Super rusty. Yeah, there's a link. Let's click on this link. Join us live, comment. So, episode number 25, we're going to do a few more episodes this season, 6 to 10 episodes. Today we're focusing on a plethora of things, including Laura Liegois is here. She's running for office, Iowa District 91. And episode number 25, nice. We're going to do a few Okay, we are rolling. We're going to be talking to her about her candidacy, why she ran, some things about her volunteer, 50 faces of volunteerism, what that means to her. And then, after we get to know a little bit about her and her candidacy, we're going to talk about some local issues, including the roundabout that we have proposed in Muscatine. Backwards parking is kind of an issue that we have in our new Mississippi corridor. And I want to explain why we did it, or I didn't do it, but why it's being done and some of the advantages, pros and cons. Also, quiet zone. We have a quiet zone district coming based on our railroad noises and more, so stay tuned. First up, though, greetings from Muscatine. I've got a photo. Nope, put the other one on first. You get there in backwards order. There we go. So anytime I see this on social media, I always love to think about that Riverview Center there, Riviera Theater I believe it was called, that they tore down. And man, I just didn't have the money at the time to save it. But what a great building, and people of a certain age will always remember going to cons. They even tore down the YWCA. But that theater, well, if we had that today, I could think of so many different ways we'd be able to use it as a public space for film festivals and kind of independent films of certain natures. Maybe different theater groups would be using it as well, because I know the theater group in town would love to have a place for that sort of thing. But anyway, I like to have postcards to send people who moved out of town to kind of remind them of different things going on in Muscatine. And this was not one of our prouder moments. Even the people demolishing were probably feeling bad about it. But what can you do? And the next photo shows what we did with that spot. It's a parking lot. And every time I drive by that parking lot during the work hours, it is packed. So apparently we needed that parking lot. But the reason I'm showing that today is because we're going to be talking about parking and the parallel parking versus off-street parking versus rear-facing parking. And we went with rear-facing parking for a lot of reasons, and I want to get Laura's perspective on that. She'll be dealing with issues like that as a candidate. So let's get to know Laura. Here she is.
Well, thank you, Chad, for asking me to be on this show.
It's been a while since I've seen you. We got a couple different projects going on.
Yes, we do have some projects that are outside of me running for House District 91, and yes, we do. And so I'm not like this is my first time on your show, because it's not. I've been on here before.
But since the last time you've been on, you've formally announced that you're running for House, Iowa House.
Yes, I am.
District 91, now what is that? Muscatine, Fruitland, Stockton, and Walcott.
That's right, that's right. And all of the little rural areas in between of that. And so that covers, obviously each district in Iowa is divided up differently depending upon how they, population-wise. And so my area, again, is the Muscatine, Fruitland, then Stockton, and Walcott area.
So Stockton, isn't that across from the landfill?
Why, yes, it is.
I know you used to be, according to the article I read, but also because I know you used to be in charge of managing solid waste.
Yes, I was. And I know that you were probably very devastated when I got rid of my title as solid waste manager.
But you've given me another reason to have you on the show.
That's right.
You're like,
there's always a reason. I belong to a lot of things.
Now you're running for House District.
I am.
Why did you decide to run? That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's a very big responsibility, and it's a very big time commitment for me for the next pretty much 10 months.
So you had some free time. You didn't have any big projects that you were working on?
No, I have no big projects. No grants attached to any projects either, or anything like that. No, not at all. The reason why I decided to run is I had several individuals come up and talk to me about what are some opportunities I would like to do, run for a office, and I had said, well, at first I thought probably maybe on a more local level, maybe on a county level down the road. And they said, what about running for a state house representative? And I said, really? I just would not think about that. But after some discussions and thinking about this in a lot of in-depth ways of what's been going on in general the last few years in our area, of where do we want to go, what are things going to do, where am I at professionally? As you know, I do consulting work. And is this an opportunity that maybe I haven't taken advantage of to do something that would be beneficial to our area? Because I am really about the people that live here. And
so you're between jobs, sort of, but you started your own job?
Not really, I'm not between jobs.
So you got you're full-time employed.
Well, I'm a business owner.
So you're not going to have time to be a really good legislator is what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I do own my own business, and I have flexibility with my own business.
Yeah, isn't that, I'm trying to get you to, I'm acknowledging that you have some flexibility in your work hours, which some jobs don't allow.
No, and that's true, and that is a very big challenge, I think, when people look at, do you want to run into a public office? It's going to, from about the second week of January, if I'm elected in November, from the second week of January of 2019 to probably, I think it's around in April, usually the end of April, 3.5 days of my life would be in Des Moines.
Okay.
And if you have a full-time job, that does make it a challenge sometimes, where you're obligated to another, location to where you are. And if I was in management of a operation, that would make it a challenge.
Who are you, now did they have, I don't know who they is by the way, but did somebody choose you? Are there other Democrats running? Or are you the chosen one? Is that how that works?
The chosen one, am I the chosen one?
Because we know that you're running against Gary Carlson. We're not sure if he's running again.
I don't know if Gary's running again or not, and that's not something he's announced yet.
But the Democratic side, is there going to be more than one candidate? Or once you've announced this, is that it? They've decided they're
To my knowledge, there is not another candidate on the Democratic side. The discussion I've had on our local committee, the Central Committee for the Democratic Party, is that there are, at this point in time, I don't think anybody's choosing to run against me in the primary. And I mean, I do have, like I said, several local people have talked to me. I've had some people at the state level talk to me about running. So it's been very interesting. I've met a lot of very unique people in the Democratic world of things that are playing some big roles.
Can I run against you?
Well, first of all, I didn't know you were a Democrat, but if you really wanted to run against me, I guess you could.
So somebody watching that doesn't want you to win the Democratic election.
Chad.
No, I'm just because you didn't really answer my question. I'm just trying to feel out can other people run as Democrats? Because there isn't what's that called, a caucus? There isn't a Republican or Democratic convention where they chose.
We are doing that on we're talking about that in the governors coming up here on the first Monday of February is the Iowa caucus, and it's on the more governor level.
Did you win the Democratic caucus, if you will? Pull that. Yeah, is it doing it again? pull the remote up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no,
did you
I know
win?
What you're saying.
Did they choose you? And that are you excited because you've got the support of the Iowa Democratic Party? If that even exists.
And I do have a lot of support from local and with working with some people from the state level in the Democratic Party. At this point in time, like I said, there's nobody who has come forward that wants to run.
If John DeBeat wants to run, can he and will he?
If he wanted to run, I mean, anybody that wanted to at this point could, and the primary's in June. But if I have nobody run against me, then automatically I am the candidate that would run against whoever is the Republican candidate.
By running early, by announcing early, somebody that might have thought they needed to kind of fill in and change some things that likes what you're doing won't run because it's being taken care of.
Well, and that's usually what happens. That's what usually does come up.
I wanted to so reading about your volunteerism and your background, it looks like you keep yourself busy.
I do.
Greater Muscatine Chamber of Commerce, you've worked for them, the Salvation Army, Muscatine Community College Alumni Foundation, so thanks for going to MCC. I've heard great things about the college. A Muscatine Diabetes Project. You work with the boxing club, I believe, through as an aspiring boxer, a female boxer.
No, I'm not into boxing. Some people might wonder if I would ever thought about that. Maybe if when I was younger, I should have. Maybe.
Like if you're debating one of your opponents about an issue about traffic cams, you could just punch them.
No, we wouldn't be doing that. No, we would not be
sparring.
doing.
With headgear, do some sparring.
No, there will be no sparring.
So what is the boxing club?
So what the boxing club is for me is my son Jacob has been part of the boxing club now for close to 4 or 5 years now. More close to 5, and I am on their board of directors. I also serve as their treasurer. And what I do for them is help them with fundraising efforts and keeping the club running. Also, if we have female boxers, which we do have a few young female boxers, if we go on travel for different traveling shows, if we had a female go, I would travel because we always need to have, if it's, a female boxer, we need to have another female person involved. So that kind of is where my role is. But again, it's one of my volunteerism. I've belonged to numerous groups in this community. At one time, I was a Cub Scout leader. I've helped with Girl Scouts. I've helped with different church events. A lot of different things that have gone on.
Now, there's a lot of faces, and sometimes people group things by faces, like 50 faces of cheerleading, 50 faces of boxing, 50 faces of you name it.
Yeah.
But the governor decided he wanted to have 50 faces of volunteerism. And you were one of those.
I was one of them.
You had 50, it's like you probably got thousands of faces. And he said, this is a face of volunteerism, because you volunteer a lot.
I do.
So that's quite an honor.
And that was an honor, and that was back when our community was going through the Blue Zone Initiative, getting certified as a Blue Zone community. And I played a lot of different roles in the early parts of that.
Good, because we're going to talk about blue zones because they had a lot to do with our back-end parking, and I don't think everybody understands the concept, so I want to refresh the memory. Now, not only did the governor give you a high five, but you were voted the Muscatine Volunteer of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes,
so the momentum is all right in your favor right now.
Well, the momentum of my volunteerism, yes, absolutely, it is.
It's a noble thing to do, to do things without being reimbursed, to have just motivated through your own will to make the community a better place.
Well, when you live in a community or an area such as our area, District 91, is, and you want to make a community be a better community. And I think it's a responsibility, if you are a citizen in a community, to take part and do something that is going to better it.
Now, one of the most impressive things that I know that you're affiliated with is you're working with the Iowa Humanities Department, University of Iowa,
yes,
and Muscatine Community College, Dream Post Media, and myself to help produce a documentary film series starting with Norman Baker.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that exciting
Well,
opportunity.
that is very exciting, and I don't think I have to tell you anything about it, but we can tell our audience. The program, as we've been talking about, has been very exciting, and we've interviewed a lot of interesting local people for it's part of this documentary project. And with that is we're going to lay out the story of Norman Baker, and some people have not been exactly excited about us with Norman Baker's story. Some people are really excited.
They're all going to go see it.
They all are going to go see it, and I think after reading our final cut here of the script,
it's good.
I think it's very good.
We're going to cast. There's a new role for the Muscatine mayor. So 1929, about 1920s, 1930s. I don't know who the mayor was, but we'll look it up. And if you happen to look like that person, I mean, isn't that kind of fun though? Like people can be the mayor. We're going to use Bellevue or a Second Street home as a frontage. The whole community is going to get involved in this.
I think it is a very big community project, and the really neat thing about this is, first of all, we are very fortunate to receive some funding with Humanities Iowa. It's a big honor to get any funding from programs like that because it is very competitive. And we also went out on our own as an independent instead of going with an educational foundation or an organization to get that funding.
And if this works, well, for one, we're going to get this finished. It's going to debut hopefully at the new Merrill Hotel on the top floor. I'm going to rent out the entire 5th level because it's the club level. So it's got its own private bar and restaurant. I don't know if you read about the specs, but the 5th level of the new Merrill Hotel they're not messing around if you can afford to hang out on the 5th level. But anyway, on all seriousness, I would like to debut it at Muscatine Independent Film Festival in November, and then have Q&A with different doctors and staff, and share it with the whole state over the course of it. And if it works according to plan, then next year maybe we'll do a documentary about weed, or we'll do it the Weed Park, Mr. James Weed.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's make sure we clarify that.
Or we'll do a documentary about the Stein lumber industry or pearl button industry. The list goes on.
The list goes on. And in the Muscatine area, we are very fortunate that we have a very rich history of families that settled here and developed businesses, did some very extraordinary things that allows us to bring it to life now.
You've got skills as a project manager, it seems, and so this is just another kind of a new challenge. It's not something you've done a lot, but it's going to be a fun challenge.
Well, I've spent 20 years directly in government, and yes, I was an environmental waste management side of it, but I did a lot of other things in government, working through the city of Muscatine, working in the Clinton County area, that allowed me to, branch out on my own, to do my business that I do, my consulting business, working with
municipal connections.
That's right. And I also, do work with some small businesses, doing small business planning. I do a lot of marketing and adventure a lot into nonprofits, doing a lot of grant writing for people also. So those things have led me up to kind of this point. And also I've always been very neutral and never really stated anything politically in my entire time in working in government, because that was an oath I took with my master's degree in public administration, is you just do not participate or be vocal about it. Yes, I'd vote, but I never talked about it. And you've known me a long time, and I never really have.
Yeah, there's no payoff, it didn't sound like, at the time, to have a real strong opinion one way or the other. For you personally, and for your job. So that's one thing. And so for me to participate in politics, in political world now, is a very different world for me. I don't consider myself to be on either spectrum. I consider myself to be Laura Liegois, and I want to represent you, and I'm about the public. About the people. I've heard that
about the people.
But
yes,
it's true.
I am.
You're trying to represent the people, like literally as a House representative, right?
I would be. And I think a lot of people who know me know that I'm very personable, and if someone has an issue, they can come talk to me, and I have no problem with that.
You'll probably take the time to listen to them for a while.
I will. I listen to everybody with
I think that might be a challenge at some point. Like Barack Obama, or who's Donald Trump, I guess the current president, but they can't listen to everybody, even though they might send them a little email, so they have to hire people. But I bet you'd be overwhelmed for a while, but I'm pretty sure you're going to give it your all to really try to listen to people.
I do, and I've kicked off my campaign a week ago, and I have had a few individuals who asked me some in-depth questions, and I have publicly answered them, and I have no reason not to publicly answer them.
And so it's not, you're fairly new to the political side, so you're not going to be extreme one way or the other. If we're going to say if there's something about the current Gary Carlson's the current incumbent. Do you have anything that you notice that he's doing that you really want to commend him on?
You know, I've known Gary a long time. I've worked with Gary on numerous committees. I know Gary does care about the Muscatine community. And, you know, I know that his time of doing what he does with his end of the spectrum in politics is kind of his choices that he's made on these. Again, I've worked with him for numerous committees. He was very active in our blue zones.
So your motivation to run isn't because you think he's doing a bad job?
My motivation
or
to run,
a job that you could do better?
Well, my motivation to run is I feel like that it is a time for the people to have the voice. And I feel like we have a large percentage of the population that's really not getting their voice heard.
Now, you have been affiliated with Mayor Diana Broderson, if I'm not mistaken, and you're kind of reminding me of some of her platforms. I believe you worked with her campaign.
Yes, I did.
So if people were in favor of Diana Broderson and some of the things that she was doing, it sounds like you share her energy to represent the people, and that's
I do have the energy
to try
to
the little man, the little guy maybe. I might be saying that wrong,
well, you know, there's
the voice that might not be heard.
The voice that not always be heard, and there's a lot more voices not heard in our community than voices heard.
It's a challenge, don't you think?
It's
probably more of a challenge to listen to the smaller voice.
Well,
than the one with lots of cash or empowered influence.
And you know what? Everybody's important. At the end of the day, the important thing is it's about the people that is served in the communities that are here. And are they taken care of? And are we doing the best that we can do for them? And
Norman
that's really
Baker,
what it's about.
Norman Baker was a voice of the little man, and that's kind of, I'm mentioning that because hopefully we can find some parallels.
You know, I don't think I'm Norman Baker, but but I do understand.
You're the producer of Norman Baker, Man in Purple, and/or Baker Institute. I don't know if we skipped over some of that, but it's going to take some of your time. And if you get elected next year, we're probably not going to be producing a short film during that particular time while you're out in session.
Not during that time. We can do that when I come out of session.
But I really hope that we're able to make a compelling documentary that you can use to show people that you're a hard worker, and then also make some positive change in the community.
Well, and I
through video and film and arts and culture.
No, I do, and I'm a huge fan of art and culture, and I think a lot of people who know me have been very active in our local theater group in the past.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I have. I've produced several theater productions. I've also performed in the performing arts myself, and I go way back from even when I was in high school and college with that.
So you've got a lot of different backgrounds and perspectives that you bring to the table. It sounds like your resume is perfectly set for this opportunity.
Well, it's an opportunity, and I had a few people tell me, I went to a training called the 50-50, and it was a woman-based training to run for office. And I know you just love that when I talk about these things. So I did go to a training. I went to a one-day training workshop. Actually, I did photography for them, so I got to sit in and listen to their full day. And the one quote that will always remind me of the situation is, "You may not be seeking the opportunity, but the opportunity may seek you."
That sounds.
And I really feel the opportunity came to seek me at this point in my life, and I would not be doing this if I did not have the support of my husband and my kids, because they are a main part of my life.
And as the executive producer of the film project that we're working on, I'm nervous because, yeah, you're saying it's going to take a lot of time, but I don't think there's any amount I think you'll find time regardless. Like
I will always find time.
Somehow you'll get an 8th day somehow if you need it to get everything done that you want to get done. You'll create Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
I will be creating it however I need to create it. And it will be done. It will be done.
Okay, let's talk about some local issues to see how you are in the
local world,
the real world. Let's throw
all right,
some
let's
things
talk
out here
about
and
some things.
Maybe you'll say something that will get you some votes. Maybe you'll say something that'll ruin your political career right here now.
Oh my gosh, Chad! I can't believe you just said that. But anyway.
Well, I don't know. It'd be entertaining to me. That's what politics is. I can think of a couple. There's politicians, they've been going along, everything's great, and then all of a sudden they said that one thing that they had to retract. I'm not saying you're going to do that today, but you know what I mean? Politics, you got to be very sensitive to what you say and how you think, because you're going to be constantly judged, and that's the cross that you bear, and that's why I think politicians should be commended for taking it upon themselves to be responsible. So what are we going to start with here? Okay, the Mississippi, well, let's do traffic cams, because I don't have as much to say about traffic cams as you probably will. But Gary Carlson, as we speak, there's legislation about traffic cams at the state level. And I might be wrong. If you haven't done any research on this, then don't worry, we're not going to get too intense. But I thought that the current thing at the state level is to just ban traffic cams all across the board. In Muscatine will be affected because we're one of the 9 towns in Iowa, something like that, that actually are making some serious cash off these things.
I know the last article I did read about this, it was a very mixed decision between will they allow it to be a community decision, or will they ban them? And I know it was kind of talking about banning them. I think traffic cams have their place. And if there are certain locations that are benefited by it because of how the traffic has been with accidents, I can value that completely.
To help make the streets safer. There's an example, we're going to use that in another context, but there's an example of where a traffic cam currently is in action on Park Avenue there, across from Tees, which is under new ownership. Hey, Alex, put that one thing that reminds people to go to YouTube Live, or I think there's one, remember that one that, but also bring that up to you. We are live if you're watching this January 25th, and you can watch the rebroadcast every Thursday at 5:30. You can tune in, and eventually you'll be able to be a guest online at the moment. Okay, so traffic cams, I mean, we'll probably do that at a later date, but the reason this is a street solution, because that's one solution to making our streets safe. And we're going to talk about quiet zones, which is another solution, and backward-facing parking, which is another street solution. So this is all about streets for the most part. But traffic cams is the current one, and I think the audience that's thinking about voting for you in the future, one or the other, appreciate your perspective on that.
Well, and I understand, hey, if you really want to know, I've had my share of, I was over 1 mile on a couple of those traffic cams, and I paid my ticket.
Yeah.
You know, if
Somebody's
you really want to know,
they make a lot of money, so
it has happened.
It must not be hard to get a traffic ticket because they make a lot of money over the course of the year.
And it was on, my biggest culprit was when it was on, the one that was on University, right on the corner of University and 61.
Wouldn't that be fun? But you could be like a legislator and like vote against that one or something. Wouldn't that be fun power to have?
Well, you do not want to take advantage of your power.
That's true.
No, you never take advantage of your power when you're given an elected
I am writing that down.
Never take advantage of your power.
No, to not run for a political office. I'm not sure I can handle all these moral consequences. Now, yeah, and I'm just wondering if we got rid of the traffic cams in Muscatine. I think it's a bad first impression. Usually it's the out-of-town people that get these because they're not familiar with a certain area, or they're trying to figure out what the street is, they're looking for addresses. So a lot of times it's out-of-town residents that we're taking their money. They're not going to be as apt to come back. But having said that, I wonder how we're going to fill in that money, because we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's probably closer to over $1 million.
Yeah. So if those go away, where were we? What are we using that money for? And I think if people that want traffic cams to be here remind us of all the great things this money's being used for, because it's being used for a lot of great things, but that would be a good way to market them if there's a group that wants traffic cameras.
And I do think in the legislation right now they are talking about the possibility of camera, if a camera is in place, and I could be totally off on this, and so I don't really know the answer, but if it is in place, that amount of money that's brought in can be utilized for public safety.
That's true. Okay, so backwards facing parking is an idea, and we got some cool statistics about why we chose to do that in a corridor, Mississippi corridor. So let's take a look at the Mississippi corridor just to remind everybody of this great thing that's in the works and a lot further along than these photos, but just to remind you.
I was going to say, where did you get those?
The Mississippi corridor project is resurfacing and redesigning the street. It's basically Mississippi River Drive, all across the Mississippi River. We've got some great plans for the riverfront, but this is not this. This is redesigning the streets, the sewer, the whole thing. Sewer isn't my favorite thing, but it needs redone. But here's a photo of one of the entrances. So there's another photo just to give them a bird's eye view here. So that's what it looked like in construction. And what they're basically doing in a nutshell, among other things, but making this street less conducive to fast driving, more pedestrian friendly. So a lot of the negative is the same thing that happened in other Blue Zones communities that have tried this. It takes a while to get used to the fact that they're purposely trying to slow traffic down, to make this less of a point A to point B part of our travel experience, and connect our downtown with our riverfront, to bring healthy opportunities for businesses to grow, for businesses to prosper, for people to drive less. It's less convenient to drive through there, period. That's on purpose, and that's why there's some pushback. Let's take a look at the next photo. Just another angle of it, just to make sure people that might be tuning in that don't leave their house much know. One, you should get out of your house and walk to the riverfront, but two, this is the Mississippi Corridor project that we're talking about. And here is one of the photos that they used to pitch the project. It doesn't look like that at all at the moment. They're still designing it, and it's not green. It's going to take a while for the trees to grow, all sorts of stuff. But as you can see, it's going to be kind of a nice little opportunity there. And that little patch in the middle connects the downtown area. Basically, that's around where the Mississippi Brew is. The whole point is to make it so that it's less of a stretch to go from downtown to the riverfront. There's a train there, which I think is important because we can't get rid of that railroad. If we had $1 billion, we'd put that railroad on a raised platform. But other than the railroad situation, which we're addressing as well, I think they're on the right track. So here's the deal, though. The first stretch has been opened, and it's right there in front of the Contrary Brewing Company, and there's a nutrition outlet there. And it goes basically from, what is that, Iowa Avenue to some tree street. And if you go down there, I don't have a photo per se of it, but you have to backwards park. So here's an example of backwards parking. I'm going to read the fine print. Go ahead and take that graphic down because some people with good eyesight may be able to read that. But here's the point. This is back-end parking. So what you do when you're parking down in front of the Contrary or even in front of where the Merrill is, around that area, the new Merrill Hotel, you drive past the spot and then back in. Now, it's a one-lane now, so you're controlling traffic. When you want to park, everybody behind you is going to have to stop, which that's confusing people. But quite frankly, it's called head-out angle parking, is the safest of all the street parking options. There's parallel parking, off-street parking, of course, perpendicular parking, and then back-end parking. While parking, drivers control the traffic behind them as they do with parallel parking. But when pulling out, that's when they see what's coming because they're heading out. So obviously, when you're leaving, it's much safer because you're not backing out into traffic. You're pulling straight out. You can look to the left. But wait, Laura, there's more. Opening the car door sends passengers towards safety, the sidewalk, not towards moving traffic. So essentially what I'm trying to say is they had the option of parallel parking and back-end parking, and they went with back-end parking. You're going to get more parking spots that way, and here's the other advantage. Also, the trunk. Everybody's got some stuff in their trunk. The trunk is accessed from the sidewalk, not the street. So you can imagine the other way around. You're basically dangling your body out in the street while you fidget with whatever it is in your trunk that you're trying to get out to your business meeting or whatever. And so these are pros to the back-end parking. Let's go to the next slide, and I'll get some input from you. I'm trying to give the viewers, I think I might have missed one there. Was there another one? Okay, so here's an example of a pedestrian area with back-end parking. You can kind of see their back-end park there. On-street parking has many benefits versus off-street parking. So they could have, opted to maybe make a parking ramp or have more off-street parking, but generally uses less land than off-street parking, like in a completely separate parking lot. Instead of tearing down buildings for parking lot, it uses less land to have on-street parking. But here's another thing you might not have thought about on-street parking, is it creates a buffer between the pedestrians and the road. So it's safer for pedestrians and for others. And it helps calm the speed of traffic because it's more narrow, so you feel less inclined to speed. It slows traffic down and provides a buffer. Okay, next slide. This is an example of back-end parking. Now here's the flaw. I was trying to think about, okay, this all makes sense, like sign me up. This is, as you mentioned, not in the show, but that 2 years ago, they had meetings and people voted for this. Like they did not, the city or whoever decided this did not decide without getting input. But on paper, this looks like a win-win. Yes, we want to slow traffic down, make it safer, make it more pedestrian friendly, make it less friendly for traffic, take a nice 3-lane highway, make it 2-lane. But here's the problem. All these photos I've showed you are in downtown areas. In the particular stretch that we're talking about, it's not really, yeah, it's downtown on one side, it's a railroad on the other. It doesn't feel like these do. It doesn't feel like a place that parallel parking would have worked. And when you back in park, in front of the Contrary, for example, in front of the Merrill Hotel area, yeah, you are slowing down traffic, and if people aren't paying attention, they're going to rear end you. No problem there. But here is the biggest problem I have with it. When you go out of the Contrary area, this is not like a downtown. You have to go that direction. You almost have to go to the bowling alley before you can turn around. And if you're from Muscatine, you know I'm not exaggerating. Because there's no way to turn around unless you make an illegal 360 turn. So
You can't do that with the median there.
But here's the greatest part. I'm not going to park there anymore because it's just too inconvenient. I'm going to park up the road a little bit. Guess what's going to happen? I'm going to have to get some exercise.
There you go. It was so blue zone for you.
It is.
You got some exercise.
But I think people need to keep in mind that walking further from point A to point B is not a bad thing. It takes you it makes you a minute or two extra, but over the course of a day, you'll have that many more steps for those people who like to take steps. You're going to have exercised.
No.
Oops, you didn't mean to exercise, but gosh dang it, the city of Muscatine cares for you and your health and your cholesterol and your heart disease. They want you to live a longer, healthier, happier life. What do you think about all that?
Well, let me take a deep breath now with all that you just said. Okay, so first of all, yes, there were public meetings, and we and I have talked about that in the past. We have had public meetings back a few years ago when we started talking about redoing the Mississippi Drive corridor. And I remember attending some of those meetings, and they did talk about what did they want to do with parking on Mississippi Drive, because we had some parallel parking spots, and there was a conversation of giving options of parallel, where you just pull in driving, or doing the back in drive, what's here now. And actually, I don't have the statistics, and when you have someone from the city of Muscatine come in, I'm sure they can tell you a little bit more details on how many spots there were. But they did gain some parking spots by doing this. They did gain a few parking spots.
Now, when your back-in parking deal is happening, since the roads are so narrow, pedestrian-friendly, traffic-unfriendly, what if an ambulance comes behind you?
Well, and that's the other thing. And I know that is a huge conversation. People, what do you do when an emergency vehicle comes? And is it a slow down, get out of where are you going to go?
And I think the fire department responded and was very reassuring that there might be a few seconds here or there, but they'll be able to get around if you pull over. There's enough room, and I think they designed the roadway that way. But I'm glad people are voicing their opinions, but I want to counter some of the negative ones, because the big picture is this is going to be good for the community, but it's going to take a little while for it to kind of
And it will be. And I'm like you, Chad. I actually had to back into a spot down in that area, and it was a snowstorm. Mm-hmm. And all I could think of is either the person behind me is going to slide right into me, but I did get backed in. If you're not good at backing in a vehicle, you better practice.
It's easier than parallel parking. I think that's another point.
And that's because a lot of people are afraid of that, because you have this other step to it. You don't have the other step to it of parallel parking.
It's easier than parallel parking, yes. Yeah, so.
But it's new and it's different, and I think we all are, oh my goodness. Now, like when I go downtown, I go to lunch periodically downtown. It's a lot easier for me to park all the way on the Pine Street parking lot on 2nd Street. I plug the meter and I walk to wherever I got to go.
So if you do this back-in parking thing, you're going to have to then get a tour of South End, because there's no place to turn around until then. And if you turn around at somebody's driveway, that's going to be unsafe, because you have to do a 3-point thing in the traffic. So they're thinking about putting a roundabout at Carver Corners. That's going to be good, because then you can go to Carver Corners, whip around, and then you get back to where you came from.
Well, and that corner, where we call Carver Corners, where we've had numerous buildings get tore down over the last few years. There used to be another building in the larger parking lot when you're going straight down Grandview onto Mississippi Drive onto Hershey Avenue, but nothing lines up there correctly. You've got Green Street, you've got another street, and
I'm in favor of putting a roundabout there. Doesn't that make sense?
The idea for the roundabout there would take and clean up all that area and allow for a better flow of traffic.
I think it's going to happen now because of the fact that people need a way to do a 360, and it's going to take them a while to drive down that way.
And
now, 2 guys in a grill, or a guy in a grill?
2 guys in a grill.
2.5 men.
It's a guy in a grill.
He might make some serious cash off of this because people are going to have to pull into his little restaurant there to turn around. Might as well grab a barbecue sandwich while you're there. People that don't know what I'm talking about, I mean, if you're not from Muscatine, then this has got to be a boring show because this is very specific visual things that people that live here know.
Well, and that is always a concern with businesses. I know downtown has some concerns about their business during construction, and I can understand that. You know.
Now, I'm glad we're talking about roundabouts because we're going to talk about that next. But I want to show those the Park Avenue. They're thinking about making that instead of a 4-lane into a 3-lane. So the one right before this, Alex, put that up. It's talking about shade, and what basically they're going to do is going to add trees and go from. This is like how Park Avenue would kind of look. Going to go, except there'd be a median in the middle, but instead of having it be 4 lanes, it's down to 3 lanes. Now, slows traffic down, but makes it more pedestrian friendly because it is not a very safe place to be on the sidewalks or on a bike. Again, though, I want people to think about what they're proposing to do with Park Avenue, but you might not think about how trees work, but if you put them on the sides of the road in the middle like that, it slows drivers down. It really does. And it provides a space cushion. And what they're talking about is that trees not only provide shade and a nice environment, but also protect pedestrians while walking and biking. When placed within 4 to 6 feet from the street, trees create a vertical wall that helps lower vehicle speeds and absorb vehicle emissions. Trees also provide a physical buffer between cars and children. On streets with narrow space between the sidewalk and curb, trees can be planted in tree wells and parking stalls to further reduce traffic speeds. We're trying to make more pedestrian-friendly areas in Muscatine, not trying to get people to drive more, to use more gas mileage, to become more and more stationary. People are not even moving much at all because with all the social media, there's no real reason to leave your house. And when you do, you're in a car. So I hope there's pushback because this at first doesn't make sense. You're making people be healthier. What if they don't want to be healthier? Go to the next slide. So on Park Avenue, they're thinking about going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, you know
that's 4 lanes right now.
Okay, so that's a 4-lane, and then the 3-lane. So for 3-lane is obviously one side would only.
I'm sorry,
have one
the middle is that turning lane thing.
The middle is the turning lane.
Yeah,
okay,
so it's not a usable lane except for if you're turning.
But taking it down to 2. Okay.
Colorado is like that. If you can picture that, it's a 3-lane with a turning lane all through the middle of it. So it's a huge wide road, but the middle lane is not used for anything unless you happen to be wanting to turn.
Wanting to turn, which if they have just one area that would be a turning lane, it may make traffic move in a different way than it is now because you can get at that intersection there, get into a situation where you want to turn and have to wait and wait and wait and wait. And you could go through a whole light section before you ever get to be able to turn.
Now the other thing that doing the 3-lane will do is I'm pretty sure they'll be able to have more of a buffer between the sidewalks. So I'm pretty sure that the sidewalks along that area will be redone or widened just a little bit, or at least there's this little tiny 1-foot sliver between the sidewalk and Park Avenue right now. It's not a safe place to take family members.
You can be in some of those buildings that are actually right on Park Avenue. I had the lovely experience, and I say this in the best way manners because it's a really great laundromat on Park Avenue. Just to let you know, over there across from Los's.
Yeah, next time
if you don't have a washing machine, I had a washing machine breakdown, and it was for a month. I didn't have a washing machine, and I had to go do my laundry there. And I went, but semis would come through, and you would think they're going to go through the building because it's like you walk out the door and boom, here's the street. So a little buffer in some areas would be good.
Let's look at the traffic. Let's look at the roundabout area there. You might want to mention your experience at the laundromat in your campaign strategy. Okay, now this is
I don't know about that. You know what? Hey, we all.
She's not afraid to wash her own laundry at the laundromat.
I go to the laundromat.
She's the voice of the people.
I go to the laundromat.
You're not big time.
No, I go to the Dollar Tree and buy things. What are you talking about?
There's the roundabout they're proposing at Hauser Street. Now, Hauser Street and
Folium.
Now, apparently, during the rush hour in the morning and afternoon, when school's in session for 9 months out of the year, this is not the place you want to be.
No, it's not. I spent many years on my way to work at the city for the city of Muscatine on this street in the morning.
Yeah.
And it does have a traffic. There is a lot of traffic.
Now, this is a mini roundabout. So the difference between this and our current roundabout is the main difference is if you have to go straight through, you can just barrel right through that little orange sphere in the middle. And that's because, well, specifically, school buses wouldn't be able to navigate that. So they're going to get the right of way.
Neither would an emergency vehicle,
Yep.
neither would a garbage truck, neither would any of those.
So this is kind of a mini one. And, you know, there's pushback on roundabouts because some people know how to use them and others don't. And those that know how to use it, try not to be judgmental. They're probably thinking in the back of their mind, really, you can't figure this out? But they are thinking it, they're just not saying it. And I'm not saying it or thinking it because that would get me in trouble. But that's the negative is people don't think we have the intelligence to figure out how to use these things.
Roundabouts have a place for them, and in some locations are great. I know there are people who do not care for the one on Cedar Street. I actually like the one on Cedar Street.
I love it. You can barrel right through there. But I've seen people where they don't get it. They stop and then they
they don't understand.
It's really confusing.
And we did have a video. I remember when not to speak for the city, but when I worked for the city, we did show a video online on how roundabouts work to kind of help people understand how they work.
That's so patronizing. Now go to the, and not to you, but isn't it? It's like really. Go to the next slide because Coralville did one, and I'm glad they took a photo with a bus barreling through there just to kind of show you.
Yeah.
Now to me that's a little bit confusing because it's kind of like, well, are people going to need to learn that a bus goes through? And I mean, because we don't have those kind of buses, so it shouldn't be a problem. If you see a school bus, you know to calm down. But
yeah, well, that would certainly be an interesting situation to have the car is over here coming around and there's a bus coming right through.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I ever experienced that, I might be going, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I might be like, whoa, what's happening?
But statistics will show that even though you might be apprehensive about trying this on Hauser and Cedar, on Hauser and Folium, statistics show that there'll be less accidents and there'll be less, period. There will be less than there currently are, and traffic will flow smoother. So if you're in favor of less accidents and quicker, more smoother flowing traffic, then the obvious logical thing to do is to allow this roundabout to happen. Problem solved, non-issue, no more discussion about it ever again. Don't you agree?
Probably not.
Yeah, I know.
And
Wish it was that simple.
Well, and I think some people that have voiced their opinions on roundabouts have given some valid reasons of, you know, maybe some people don't understand how they work. Is this really necessary to put a roundabout everything? And that's the solution for a lot of traffic is people are feeling that that's what people think we can do.
The people that don't know how to use the roundabouts, can't we just corral them all up and ship them out of our town?
No, you cannot do that.
You can't just deport them?
No.
What if their parents brought them here and they...
Oh my gosh.
No, wrong show.
Wrong show.
We don't want to get that political with your District 91.
No.
I'm only cutting you off because I'm trying to get to one more thing here.
Oh my
plus,
gosh.
I don't even want to...
You need to change the subject. You need to for you.
Now, speaking of the downtown slowing traffic down idea, if they do that at Park Avenue with the 3-lane, and it's already going to be inconvenient to whip through on your car through the Mississippi corridor, what I think is going to happen, the same thing that happened in San Luis Obispo in California, they redirected all of the highway traffic from the downtown to their bypass. Mm-hmm. And at first, everybody was screaming. Over time, everything worked according to plan, and that's a thriving community because I think businesses aren't going to like the idea of traffic being diverted, but I think naturally it's going to be less convenient and traffic is going to adapt. Mississippi corridor has been closed for quite a while. We've adapted how we get from point A to point B. So I think that's the point, is that our bypass is going to become more of a thoroughfare for the big semis, for truckers. They're not going to come barreling through there, and we're going to have more relaxed environment. Do you see that or not?
No, and I can see some of that, but
Okay.
And I can't speak up obviously on behalf of larger industry, but you still have a main facility for H&I and Han downtown.
Yeah.
And you still have docks that those big semi trucks have to pull into. So if they're coming off of the bypass area, which I can see traffic that's not coming into Muscatine for a purpose to just use the bypass. I mean, I do that. I don't go when I'm around in different communities. I have no reason to go that way, and I can stay on my main area and go 55 miles an hour or whatever it is.
When I'm going from Burlington, for example, because I live by Walmart area, I can use the bypass to get to the south end of town, or I could go through town. I'm thinking now I'll probably use the bypass if I'm in a hurry, because now this isn't the route to go if you're in a hurry. The Han trucks will have stopped before they get to the corridor, so they have a vested interest. But the other industries, other people, I think the semi-traffic's going to be reduced.
Well, there was a lot of confusion this summer over semi-traffic going up 3rd Street and down, and they weren't supposed to. And I know that was quite a conversation. That was quite a conversation.
Can you see how not having semis barreling through there is going to make it a safer place, and we're going to be able to use the riverfront more, and the downtown's going to be able to thrive in certain ways because of that? Instead
of let's hurry up and run right now between the train and the train to the median, and then from the median to the next step to get to... and hope the light doesn't change or anything like that.
Now, speaking of one last thing they're doing to make this more safe, pedestrian-friendly downtown is the quiet zone. I've got a photo. This is blown up on my news feed, but they got a quiet zone photo. I don't know if you've seen these yet, but that is not a Photoshop. That has actually happened in Muscatine. That is the barriers they've installed in front of the railroad tracks right there by Han and the riverfront. Now, just to tell you, I understand it in theory, but you're not going to be able to get a bike with a baby trailer through that. You're not going to be able to get a tandem through that. I'm pretty sure, even though I'm pretty skilled at bike handler, I'm going to have to actually get off my bike to get through that. And I am not looking forward to that. I probably won't use that bike trail, quite frankly, because there'll be 2 of those. The reason they're doing that's not the city's property. That's the railroad's property, and they're getting sick of people suing them every time they hit somebody. But here's my point. The trains don't hit people that often. Planes don't actually go down that often. Pedestrians are hit way more by cars than they ever will by trains. But here's the thing. If they install these, then the train operators won't be as obligated to blow that horn. You're sitting there eating a burger at the Mississippi Brew. You get your ears blown off.
Yeah, so, you do in the downtown, and you do.
And here's kind of the parody of it. This is what will happen. If I can figure out a way to ride my bike around that thing, I'm already doing that. Not because I'm a renegade. It's just that's what happens when they do this. People will just go around it if possible. But at least you can't sue the railroad because they tried to make you safe. But this is what's going to happen with the ones in Muscatine, in my opinion.
Go around instead of
getting off your bike.
Getting off your bike and going through, you're going around and beating a path.
If you're a pedestrian, you should look both ways. But here's my other point. Is it really that hard to see a 5-ton train coming compared to a car? Apparently it is. But I think this is a little bit overkill. Maybe a blinking sign that says you might die if you don't slow down and look both ways. But if they're going to do a barricade like this in front of the railroad tracks, I say do that in front of every city intersection in Muscatine, because every city intersection in Muscatine is just as dangerous as this is, if not more. Any thoughts?
Well, I do know the whole quiet zone with the trains, and there are people who certainly have a feeling towards that. They like hearing the trains.
Oh, the hearing impaired.
No, they're not hearing it now. Listen,
they will be.
But hearing the trains. I have been downtown. I have been out on the patio at Mississippi Brew having lunch, and the train goes by, and we all have to stop.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, but I could see where, especially with the new Merrill Hotel, it's a 4-star hotel with a 5th level, club level. The lowest room that you can get there is $160. And that's not a bad deal, by the way. I'm just saying, I could see where they're probably glad to think that you're not going to have to sit there and listen to a railroad barreling through. Now, when I used to live in the trailer courts right there in Sampson, right next to the railroad car, you expect that, It's lower property value because that's not something that you want, is a train barreling through your house, shaking the rafters, blowing its horn, and that's not something that a property owner, business owner would want downtown. So I'm in favor of the quiet zone. It's just interesting that that is part of that quiet zone. They won't have to blow the horn as much now. I think that's what that is.
Well, I've heard several versions of what the quiet zone's supposed to do, and I know a lot of communities are looking into it.
It's the horn, right? It's not like
it's
the
about,
brew can still have bands and everything.
It's about the horn because, yes, it is about pretty much them blowing the whistle on the trains. And I know that there are people, especially some of our older residents who've lived here their whole life, that are like, well, hearing the train is just part of living here. And so that is, their thing, that this is just part of living here. But
you're running as, let's go back to you as we close, but you're running for office to make our great community even better. So you're not going to settle for phrases like, well, that's just what it's like to live here. You're going to tackle these issues one by one.
That's right. That's right.
And listen to the little man. You're also going to listen to the big man, right?
Well, you know what? Everybody's important. Everybody has a voice.
You're not prejudiced against people that are a certain height. You're not going to not listen to people because they're rich, are you?
No, that's not the case at all. That's not the case at all.
Just because somebody's got some money doesn't mean that they don't have a voice.
Everybody has a voice. Everybody does. And
I'm trying to wrap this up, but I think, well, for the hour's sake.
Yes.
But the main reason I brought you in is because it's exciting that you're running for office, and I want to give you the last word as far as that goes, because you were running for House District 91 as under the Democratic ticket, and you just recently announced it. So.
Yes, I did. Just last week, you're my first big formal
What do you want to tell your constituents?
Well, my constituents, here's why I want to run for District House 91 is because I'm from Muscatine. I chose to come back home to Muscatine. My husband and I could have went anywhere we wanted to when we chose to leave living in Clinton, Iowa in 2007, and we came back home. And this is home, and we're not done living here yet, and I have lots of work to do for the people that I work for, I should say. And some of the things that I think are very important to our area is making sure that we continue growing economic development, have livable wages for our people that work here, so they can have enjoyable lifestyles with their families and take care of their families. I also am a firm believer in public education, and we need to making sure we're funding public education. We're paying and giving the instructions, materials, whatever we need to do for our teachers to get them to do the best job they can do. And we need to be providing very good ways for our children, students leaving high school to either be moving towards more tech jobs or going into community colleges or finding the right direction for them. I also believe that many of those trainings can start even in the high school level. And finally, our healthcare system in Iowa is just, it's a very devastating state, at a moment state, I should say. And we need to get that back in the state's hands, and we also need a mental health program. Our mental health program is there is no mental health program.
I'm an advocate of mental health programs for a plethora of reasons. Well put. And I want to make a note to have you on at some point. I've been doing some research in a documentary about the living wage here and our lack of affordable housing. And so
yes, that is a huge issue.
I think we'll have a panel with you on at a later date because it sounds like a part of your platform and something that you're interested in.
It is part of my platform because I really want to believe that we have a large population of people that are not really being represented. And we need to represent them and move forward with making that people who are happy to live here in Iowa and want to stay in Iowa, especially District House 91.
Yeah, you really have good perspectives on everything we've been talking about and then some, so wish you the best of luck in your candidacy, and we'll have you back whenever you want.
I know, you'd be thrilled.
But I do want to mention that Kevin Dennison, the communications director from the city, has accepted my invitation to be on the show, which is good because I said a lot of things and I didn't use too many facts, but like you mentioned, we're going to have somebody that knows from the city's perspective the answers to a lot of questions that the community has. And so I'm going to be honored to have him out here to clarify some things and probably go over some of these same issues about roundabouts, back-end parking, quiet zone, you name it. We're going to have him on probably next week, if not in the future. Also looking forward to having our current mayor on, some of the current council members, and maybe even you if you're watching right now and you want to be on the show. We'll have a panel. This isn't my show. This is the community show. This is Public Access Channel 9. This is whatever you guys want. This is just viewpoints that we're sharing to try to make a community an even better place to live. So now, until next time, I'm Chad Bishop signing off for Access Channel 9. See you later.